Architecture, the first entry, 11 bar 1013, Koshy P. Koshy.
I hope the biryani has settled in. My butterflies have settled in, so it's good. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor and privilege to be among shortlisted, and especially it's very inspiring to see the kind of work that has been showcased. This project that I'm showing you and explaining to you is a project which happened during a very difficult phase in my life, 2019, 2020, when you're in that crux of, in a family and when you're in the crux of starting on your own. So this project is actually our first project in the office. The office is called Koshish. So for me, the way I look at the whole space and the way things have transformed is always like, if I can get another chance, why not? Materials also get another chance. So we were blessed with this project. Um, we were restoring another project, and then there were some tiles that were not required for that particular space. So we got some tiles, we got some steel trusses. So this is the space actually. So a lot of the roof materials were removed, and then we transformed this to another convention center. So luckily the client didn't want it, but later he regretted it. So the whole question always belongs, when you start on your own, these questions keep ringing your mind. Can we make space timeless? Can we rebirth life into old? Can we create something new? There's always these questions, and I think this project reflects more than the questions. I think it's a journey, and it's a journey of many chances. So that's what I always look at. So we had this property in Kakinad, Cochin, which was about half an acre, and it was a dump yard. All the apartments, there were loads of Pampers on the site, and it was just a junkyard. So we thought, why not we just move the office here and let's look at a new space. So with all that happening around in the background, family, profession, everything happening around you tend to tone down yourself. And then the easiest way how a house or a space is always replicated by a child is always like this, like a triangle and a square. And then, of course, you're inside that thinking what to do. So if you want to have freedom, I think you just have to lift up your spirits and lift up your line. So that's the whole thing. As you see the presentation, you'll see all this transporting through it. This is what we had, and this is what we had brought to the site. There were about all these old terracotta tiles. All these sections were from that place, about 100 years old. You don't get these sections now. Really good stuff. Then it was, as in this is what it was, and this is what we kind of transformed it and used it. I'm not boring you with too much of information on these, but this is how we used it. We used all the tiles on the floor, on the roof, on the walls. We used all the steel sections, whatever was available. We used that to create sections which were, you don't get these sections now, but then it was really fun to work out. In fact, all these drawings that you see now are made after the structure was made, because a lot of the discussions and a lot of the execution was done after we thought what to do, and then now we made these drawings. I have to mention the intern who was solely after this, and the guy who did this, Roshit and Rizwan, he's the guy, those are the guys who pulled this through. And if not, I would not have presented this. So we used everything. In fact, if you notice, there have been discarded weights also that we used as rods. We used perforated sheets. We used everything that was, about 10% of the building is new, including us. So quickly, how this whole space works is, on the lower level, we have a very porous laminate wire. That's the whole entry court. At the upper level, we have our own studio space, which is flexible. And on top, we have like this brainstorming pod. So that's how it is. And a very, very simple diagram. So what we did is we finished the structure first with steel, and that took about 1.5 months. And the beauty about this is, when the workers on site, they have, we didn't use a structural engineer. We were all just working with instincts. But the guys on site, they have a very tacit knowledge of material. And they said, Saray, this is very difficult, this is all old sections. But then when they say, so we can cantilever it out by 1 meter, I'll say, let's push it to 1.5 meters. So it was a lot of experimentation, and why not when you're making your own space? So we finished the structure as soon as possible, and then we started, adding all the elements one by one, and then we slowly moved into this. Below, if you notice, there's a sectional cutaway which shows the pivoted windows which are used over there. There's a lot of daylight coming in. We've oriented the building east-west, and there's a lot of light, and it's very dynamic as a space. All that you see in red here are the terracotta tiles, and that's, in fact, we actually had one of the trainees coming and counting 14,858 tiles. So that's what the project is about. All that you see on the floor, the walls, the roof, the ceiling is all the old terracotta tiles. The steel is all the old steel sections that we use. Beautiful sections which can be repurposed. The pivoted windows are all about 100 years old. So just the glass and the little concrete is what we had to source from close by. This is how it is. This is how it sectionally works. We've elevated this space through. A lot of player scale and light. In fact, the guy in red is my son. He would wish to be here, but he's not here. And the small one on the side is Rocky. We have 3 dogs now. The office space is transformed quite a bit now. So these are a bit old photos. But then if we could create a lamp in the city, it was quite nice. And then we were able to achieve it. And a lot of people who kind of know me personally always say this, this building reflects a lot of myself. And that really hit me a lot because, yes, I am very porous. I'm very porous on the inside, but on the outside I might look very blocked. So this is how the lower level is. Those pivoted windows, sometimes we keep it flat. We put our workstations on it. We read newspaper. Not much of materials used. We've used oxide flooring. We've used natural colors over here. And it's very breathable. The whole space is very breathable. And I think a lot of the questions of, what do we do as a first project, and then that whole responsibility of being an architect, we thought, okay, why not? We've got a chance to reuse something. Let's give life another chance. So that's how it is. This is how the workspace is. We've got about that's my son on the red one reading his asterisks. But yeah, we've got workstations there now. All the materials, and there's a lot of, you're always connected with nature, and I think just elevating that whole structure up helped us a lot. This is now, this particular building has changed the address of that area. It's called the Ode building, and I think a lot of people have come here to understand, they never knew sections like this could be used. So in fact, the client who gave this to us is so happy that we were able to reuse this whole structure. So this, these are certain shots during the daytime and the western light coming in. This is how we use the tiles. In fact, what you see on the left and the right, those things are those curtain blinds, the weights, so that the curtain doesn't sway. So we've just made this reminiscent of leaves as it moves. These are shots from the outside and inside. We've used perforated sheets on the floor, so it's more transparent. So every time you're always connected with what's around. We have done an extension beyond this. These are the photos about a few years back. But, that whole sense of time and sense of place has been able to create in this place. And this is some of the shots that was taken those days. In the night, it's very different. It works like a lamp and it shoots to the outside. In the nighttime, it's very different. In the daytime, it's very different. So I think the building develops. And at this point, I'd like to just talk about one of these eureka moments or these questions which came to my mind and which really hit me a lot. When I had a privilege to stay in IIM Ahmedabad in many years back, and at that point of time, I was able to stay in Khan's hostel building, and we stayed there for about 3 days. And then, an ardent architecture follower, like I actually went there, spoke to the kids, spoke to the children, to the people over there. I spoke to the staff. And then there was this one question I asked them, what do you guys like about this project? And there was one answer which really struck me a lot. And he kept on saying, sir, I think this building or this architecture, you all know, no, the whole building is made of brick. And they said something that which really struck me. So I think it's the brick that, this building makes us feel as one. And I just didn't get it. He paused for a while and smiled and said, maybe it's the brick. So probably, that's what gets us together working in this place, and this is what we are. And thank you for your time. Thank you. I think I have an extra 1 minute, 10 seconds. But I'm okay.
Kindly move on to the Q&A session.
Thanks for the presentation, Koshy. Hello, yeah. That it was an experimental project for you.
Yes.
So I think it was completed almost 4 years back, and
Yes.
you have stayed in, you live in that place, work in that place. What are some of the things that you would have done differently in hindsight? And also considering the fact that you said that there is an adjoining residence that you're
Yes,
coming
yes,
up
yes,
with,
yes.
which might follow the same vocabulary.
Yes.
And the second quick question, at any point of time did you think there could be an overdose of the tiles?
I love that question. And I think for me at that point of time, it was a challenge to use everything as much as possible. The whole tile to me, I think it's a large earthen pot, so climatically it's worked for us. So I've never rethought about using that again. And in fact, because I loved it so much here, I used it for the residents. You would have seen the residents, right? We've got this whole breathing skin over there with plants just growing on top of it. I've not showcased it here. So in that way, I'm good with the fact that I was able to use it on the floor, the wall, and the tiles. Typically, it's only used on the roof tiles in Cochin. And for me, I think each tile had a story. We've actually sourced those tiles from about 4 places. And one was about 8 kilometers, one was about 6 kilometers. So it was fun, like certain tiles were dark in color, certain tiles. So I think it's all about, and sometimes people who are in the office, they just write notes on it. So there's a lot of tell a tale, there's a lot of history. To me, I feel I'm okay with the tiles. So.
Would you have done something differently in hindsight? That was my first question also.
Differently?
Because it was an experimental project.
It was an experiment,
for you.
yes. So that happened because the materials were available, ma'am. We didn't have any preconceived idea of creating, using. It all happened in the same time. I was telling you that 2019, 2020 was a very difficult phase, and then we were doing this project, and then we thought we'll start. So I guess it all just fell in place, and just worked together, I guess. So far so good. 4 years, it's still standing. So it was an experiment because I never consulted a structural engineer. In fact, a few people who came said it'll fall, but it's still standing. So they said you need to provide some lattice girders, and I said no way. But those sections are really good, though. I don't know if I answered your question. But
Koshy, the category that we are discussing this project under is responsible architecture.
Yes.
And so my question is responsible to what and to whom?
Okay.
Because if you look at the larger domain of architecture as being a responsible profession, I mean,
Yes.
you cannot have irresponsible architecture.
Yes.
So fundamentally, I have a problem with the category itself and its
Yes,
nomenclature. But having said that, it is there. It is also meant to put a particular finger on your project to look at it beyond its optics, beyond its circumstance of having found the tiles and a client who thought this is reject material and an architect who was opportunistic in taking that material into his fold rather than spending time convincing the architect that this material is useful. So I'm questioning where and how does the line of responsibility, where does it begin, where does it rest? And I need you to answer this.
It's a great question. The only time I've heard responsibility is when they say you need to be a responsible father, you need to be a responsible son. But as an architect, I would say, giving discarded materials, giving the elements of light, ventilation, all those comes with it together. But the fact, I think, at that particular juncture, if you have to ask me, the question of reusing something which was discarded, which just hit me a lot at that point of time. And that was something, that's a challenge I took it up. And it's not that, amazing windows.
Let me interject you.
Yeah.
You have a project going on. There is this material there. So I would have loved to see, in the context of what you did for yourself with this material, what you did at the same time for that client.
I can explain that. In fact, that particular shot I showed in the first, we've actually removed the roof tiles there, and we've put glass, and then that looks on. It's actually a convention center. So the atrium space actually looks towards a large a chimney. It's there in that area. Probably later I could show that to you. So we've used that. So we've not. For some reason, the client always said, if you use tiles, it'll feel like Kerala. So he wanted to make it like a. In fact, that particular building, if you look at the scales, it had a lot of the British kind of a scale with repeated windows, and so we used all of that. Just that he had an issue with tiles being used.
So if we talk about that project for a moment, if the tiles left, and then you could see a chimney through. You had sunlight streaming in, and you could see the chimney.
Yes.
But that's not Kerala either, right?
That's what I said. So then we got that spirit through, and then we got this thing working together.
So, but then my question is that there is a certain responsibility there, which under the client's pressure is thwarted. That Kerala needs deep shade. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
have, you can't create a greenhouse
Yeah, yeah,
with glass.
yeah, yeah.
So how does that? Because for us, and as a peer and a colleague, you know,
Yes, yes,
like
yes.
it's important for us to look at both sides of the coin. So
Yeah.
this we've seen, and that I would like to know. So
I will show that to you also. The thing is, actually, that's an atrium space, and that's not part of the halls. I'll probably later I could show that. It's one of the convention centers. That's the first one, and that's come out quite decent. Yeah, it's quite okay. I think, see, that the whole mind block of that client saying that, I don't, and so he keeps telling his friends, Koshy took all my waste materials and created his office. So that's how it is. But I felt at that point it was a good opportunity, and then he did come. He was the first person I made to step into the office.
the project, it doesn't take away from the fact that the project demonstrates a certain skill
Yeah.
and a deftness to create space, look at
Yeah.
materiality,
Yeah.
but that is a skill set.
Okay.
And that how that skill set is deployed
Okay.
is about the responsibility we are talking about. So
Okay,
I am
Okay.
really pushing again to what happened to the building that lost these tiles is my
Okay,
question,
okay,
and
okay.
I'll stop here.
Okay. So the thing about Mangalore tiles is actually there's a lot of heat that gets absorbed, and when you're doing a convention center, that transfer comes in, and there's a lot of maintenance to it. So at that point, we had to redo a lot of things. But I'll show you how it transformed. So
Yeah, this is a continuing dialogue, and
Yes, yes,
we
yes.
both take away from this.
Yes.
It's not linear.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Do we have time? Sure. Why do you a one-line answer would be sufficient. Why do you think this should be fit in to responsible architecture and not adaptive reuse? What made you bring this into this category?
Was there a section for adaptive reuse? I'm not sure about.
Even if it wasn't there, why did you think your project should come into this category?
I think architects need to also have that responsibility not to salvage material and start fresh all the time. So I think that was something which I felt I shouldn't be. See, adaptive reuse, upcycling, all these are jargons, but then when it comes back to your own space, I think that's a statement you make that, anything can look new and anything can be transformed, and that's the way I would look at it.
The project leaves us with thoughts about a certain vocabulary that can be achieved.
Okay.
And I think that is something that I would take away from this.
Okay. Thank you.